Well, hello. Today we are going to do September's reading recap. So we're going to go over all the books that I read in September. And there were quite a few books I read this September. So we are starting with the best summer of our lives. And I started talking about this a little bit in August reading recap. Or actually, I think it was the book haul, because that's when I got it. It was an amazing book. Let's just start with that. Get it off the table. It was an amazing book. And look at it. It is not a short book. Finished it in one day. I just could not put it down. This is probably going to sound kind of weird, but this is probably one of the more general market books I've found that's Christian, which honestly I really liked. It reminded me a lot of Kelly Rimmer's books, so it had that sort of raw intensity while tackling some really hard, deep subjects. But I felt like it did so without feeling preachy. There was a bit of a faith element woven in, but it was very tactful and it felt really natural, and I just really loved the book. When I was picking a book from ACFW to read, I read through this back cover blurb and I'm like, the whole season thing is probably kind of cheesy. I thought it sounded pretty cheesy because it's about the four friends who are spring and autumn and snow and summer, and it felt kind of cheesy originally. It is not cheesy at all, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. I just absolutely love this book. It was so awesome. The next book I read, also an ACFW book, is Injustice for All. I felt like it was really fast-paced, well woven together. The suspect is a woman who knows the psychology of hiding their tracks, so she can be buried deep within layers of non-discovery, whatever that means. Basically, she can't be found. So it's a really interesting murder mystery, sort of, with an interesting romance plot in it. A little bit at the beginning, I was somewhat confused by the POVs and just not knowing who was who, and I just wasn't able to get very immersed in the story. But once I was actually able to sit down and read it, I finished the last 3/4 of the book in a day. The next book I read, Instagram picked. So basically, I just made a poll on Instagram and had you guys pick which book I needed to read next because I could not decide. So if you want to stay in the loop for all those random updates and help me choose what books to read next, please follow me on Instagram. But the book that ended up getting chosen was The Lost Melody. This is such a fascinating concept. So it's the idea of being trapped in an insane asylum, but they won't believe you, even though you're sane. So no matter what you say, they believe you have lost your mind. It's this whole very, very, very interesting conundrum of just being trapped. It really draws you in right from the beginning, and it's honestly just this battle for truth where no one would listen, no one would believe you. It's the moment when you as the reader really want to just get in the book and yell at the mean characters and just tell them that she's telling the truth. I've read quite a few of Joanna's books, and I really feel like she does an amazing job just weaving in this air of mystery, and they feel like they have this darker, more suspicious air to them, and she just does a phenomenal job pulling that off. And this is actually one of the books that she gave me, so she signed it right over here. Yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience to meet her. But overall, this was just an amazing book. It really draws you in, that idea of being trapped in an insane asylum and just no one will listen to you, no one will believe you. It just fascinates me. And yeah, it was just an amazing book. I read it really fast as well. After that, I read one of the bookstore finds that I bought on bargain. The Last Year of the War. I felt like the story itself wasn't bad. I didn't dislike the story. It had a very interesting, unique perspective on World War II that I haven't really thought about. I just didn't really love her writing style. It felt more biographical and less like immersive storytelling. So it was more like reading a biography. There didn't feel like there was very much immersive storytelling in it. Like I wasn't being sucked into the story in like forced flip pages. It felt like reading more of a biography. And there were also a couple characters that really annoyed me. Not in the sense that they were badly written or anything. It was more just that they were portrayed as really awesome or sweet, nice characters, and then something happened or... Okay, there is one specific character that is what I'm thinking of. So if you haven't read the book, skip ahead a couple seconds for spoilers. I felt really conflicted over Ralph. So if you read the book, you know that he is the guy she marries. So in the cafe, he's all sweet and stuff, and I liked him. I honestly thought that they would end up falling in love after they got married. But then after they got married, I felt like he was really cold or just insensitive, or he felt really lame and selfish. So I just didn't really like how he went from being thoughtful and kind in the cafe to being married to her, and now he feels like a totally different character. Yeah, That was my issue. So I didn't mind The Last Year of the War, it just wasn't my favorite book ever. And I've read a lot of really amazing World War II, so it just wasn't my favorite. I also felt like the stakes weren't very high, which is kind of ironic seeing that it is World War II and they're being accused of being Nazis when they're Americans and they get sent back to Germany. Yeah. There should have been a lot higher stakes, or we should have felt the stakes a lot higher. And maybe that was because the story is written from a young teen's perspective. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was the most immersive and the most interesting World War II book that I've ever read. After that, I did a blast from the past because it was about time that I read it. I read Mockingjay again. This is probably like the 5th time-ish that I've read it in the last like year and a half. I don't know. We'll just say that there's elements of some character development that has to do with the story that I'm writing, so I kind of needed to get in that mindset. Yeah, I just felt like I needed to read this book again. After that, I read Forever Music. I know this is not a bookmark. She gave me some notes, so I left them in the book so I don't lose them. Let's just start with the cover. I'm sorry, I do judge books by the covers. It's not a good habit, but it is true. So I do judge books by the cover, and I was not enthralled to read this book. I am sorry. I'll also say I don't love the title of the book. Basically, as I read it, I realized that the title doesn't really feel as significant as it should, being the title. Like, if it's called Forever Music, it really should have the whole book is about music, or there's a very key thread of musicians throughout the book. There is a musician in the book, but it's not really that big of a deal, and it doesn't actually come out until, like, 4th of the way through the book, so that it's not really well set up. The title, I didn't really ever feel like the title was well set up. That said, when you get over the title and the cover, it was honestly a really nice surprise. I really enjoyed the book. It was just a really fun, sweet contemporary romance with some fun tropes. So it's about a hotshot lawyer who's beginning to question his life and everything his father dreamed for him. And then a stubborn girl who is passionate about saving this library that she loved from her childhood. So I really found that they made a really fun duo. It was really fun to read their interactions and see them develop their friendship and then a bit more as the book goes on. I will say, Josie's brothers are a blast to read. They just felt so real, so authentic, just the way that they talked. It was just a really fun set of characters there. And then lastly, on Moonberry Lake. Let's just start with this. She writes some amazing characters. Like, I don't know if I've ever read characters so quirky and so interesting as her characters. It's just such an awesome cast. So she has the wackos that are kind of crazy, like Widgie, who honestly ends up stealing your heart, and she's very unique and very interesting. I don't know, she just writes some amazing characters, and we have Kitty, who's so sweet and lovable, and who you just fall in love with because she's just so sweet and caring and giving. The cast was just so diverse and unique, while each of the characters were sounding so different and entertaining. Honestly, the stakes weren't extremely high or epic. It was just more of a cozy, fun read. It kind of reminded me of The Best Summer of Our Lives with the lake feeling. It was like that without all the drama. I was originally drawn in at the beginning from all the mystery dynamics with the family, and then I quickly realized that that was not really the point of the book. So it does suck you in with that mystery, but it's really more about Cora discovering herself and becoming content with her surroundings than it really is to unravel all the threads of her mysterious family. And then there was a little bit of romance in it, but it really wasn't overpowering. Honestly, I may have liked a little bit more of the romantic characters involved. So for those of you who don't love a contemporary romance or don't really want all that romance in your books, this might be the book for you. It was just such a cozy, fun read, and I finished it really fast as well. So these were all the books that I read in September. If you read any awesome books in September, make sure just to drop a comment. I'd love to dialogue with you a little bit about the books that you read, see if there were any ones that sparked my interest. I'd love to have some new suggestions, even though I have a huge pile of books that I really need to read. I'm always looking for new things, right? So if you had any awesome books that you read in September or even in August, let me know down in the comments below, and I'd love to chat with you about them. And then if you haven't already, make sure to click the subscribe to stay tuned for next week's video. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope I will see you then. I felt like reading more. I felt like. I actually read a black cover blurb here. I can't talk. Deep subjects. Ugh.